Okay, digital imaging. One thing I'm going to do today is we're going to be doing our an image trace, and then also going to be aligning some things around a circle here. So you should have your fill and stroke open up, and you should also have your align and distribute open up. So remember that those are inside object, fill and stroke, and then align and distribute down here at the bottom here. And we're going to start off with this circle here. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a guide into the middle of our circle. And you've got, so we're going to use our rulers here. And we're going to click on this circle, and then we're going to go up to our rulers here, and then I'm just going to click and pull down with my mouse, and I'm going to use this. Looks like my computer's kind of freezing here. Oh, kind of froze here. So I'm going to grab my guide here, and what's going on with this thing? Let me try again. There we go. Looks like my computer is freezing. So I'm going to use this guide, and I'm going to put this guide right in the middle here. And this is going to mark the middle of our circle here. I could create a guide here that goes vertical too. So if you click and drag, you can also create guides. They're in the middle there too as well. And do something like that. But I don't really need that. So I'm just going to delete that one here. Oops, did not mean to delete that. I'm just going to move this guy out here. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab a circle, and I'm going to make a perfect circle. So I'm going to hold my control key and create my circle here. And I've just got this blue fill and no stroke on this. And then I want to align this circle here to my larger circle. So I'm going to select both of these. I'm going to go to my align and distribute, and I'm going to click on this and then align this upon that circle there. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I want to create some circles that wrap around all the way around the circumference of this larger circle here. And we could do this with any sort of designs that you've made here. We're keeping it pretty simple with just some simple circles. So I'm going to grab this, and then remember, if you click twice on your circle here, you've got your rotate tools, and then here in the middle is this guide that I can use for how I want to rotate things. So if I grab this and then just bring this straight down, I'm going to hold my control key, and that's going to keep this line straight up and down here. I'm going to put this guide right there in the middle of my circle here. So now what I've done is this guide is my axis point for how I rotate this tool, or rotate this circle here. So now if I rotate this, it's going to rotate that along this center axis, which is in the middle of my circle here. Okay, and I could put this little axis like wherever I want. So if I wanted to rotate this circle along this axis, you know, I could rotate along that axis. If I wanted to put this axis, you know, over here, I could rotate it along that axis like that here. Okay, I'm just going to step backwards and put that back to where I had it originally here. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a copy of this. So I'm going to press my Control D key, and then I'm going to rotate this. And so remember, Control D makes a duplicate on top of that, and then I'm going to rotate this along this next axis here. Now what's going on? How come that's not right? Let me try that again here. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to press Control D, and then I'm going to rotate. What's going on? How come this isn't rotating? Oh my gosh, duh, because I'm grabbing the wrong handle. Oh my, yeah. So I'm going to grab this and rotate that. I'm going to hold my control key, and I can rotate this. So remember, with control, it'll rotate that on 15-degree increments. Or I could let go of my control key, and I could just rotate this. I'm just going to do control, though, and rotate that like that. Okay. I'm going to press Control D again, and then I'm going to grab my handles, which I was not doing the other time, which is why that was messing up on me. I'm going to press Control D again, and we're just going to repeat this step all the way around here. Control D, I'm grabbing my handles. Whoops, was not grabbing my handles there. Okay, I'm just going to do one more here. There's some other ways that we could do this. This is a different way that we've done before. If you remember at the beginning of the semester, we also used our arrange tool, and we used these polar coordinates to wrap things around a circle. That one's a little bit tricky, so that's why I wanted to show you guys this other way that you could do this. So again, this works with any sort of shapes here, and I thought this would be helpful because I've had some students ask about how to do this with their command crest. Okay, the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to do what's called a bitmap, or in Illustrator it's called an image trace. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Path and then go to Trace Bitmap, and that's going to open up this window. And what the Trace Bitmap does is it basically turns a photo from a JPEG and turns it into a vector object. And sometimes this works really well depending on what it is that you want to do, and then sometimes it doesn't work super well. And so what it does is it is an algorithm that automatically traces or draws your image and creates one for you. So we've got these different images we're going to try this out on and see what this works here. Okay, so I've got my first image here. Now if you look at this, you've got Trace Bitmap, Pixel Art, and Help. We're not really worried about those for that. What we're really concerned with here is single scan and multiple scan. So basically the difference between those, single scan is going to create one single scan. Usually you use that for black and white, and then multiple scans, you can create multiple scans of an object, and normally use that for color images. You can use multiple scans for black and white, and it'll create a image that has multiple layers to it. But for this image here, we're just going to use single scan. Okay, you've got some different options here, and depending on what type of image that you're using and what kind of result that you want to create, you're going to be changing this every single time here. So when you do this, we'll use these images here, but in the future you just might want to kind of play around with some of these different settings and see what these settings do, like I said, because they're going to change depending on what it is that you want to do here. So there's this little drop down menu. There's brightness cutoff, edge detection, color quantization, auto trace, and then centerline tracing auto trace here. We're going to try just a couple of these and kind of see what they do here. So I've got my image selected, and I can click on this. And then I've got a brightness threshold, and this changes for the different image here. And then there's also invert image. Invert image is where you create an opposite of an image. So like this one, the black background would turn white, and my flower would turn different parts of grays here. Okay, and then I've got my threshold. I'm just going to keep this at the default and press apply here. And you'll see here's my image inside here. And then this gives me an idea of what it looks like. And then here's my image here. And what it does is it creates a copy of that image. So I'm going to zoom in here so you can kind of see what that looks like. Okay. So you can see it did trace this, but there is some stuff that it kind of left out here. I'm going to try this again here. And let's kind of up our brightness threshold here. And so I'm just going to do that. What you can also do is you can press update here, and then that will create your different image and kind of see what it looks like. So if I increase my brightness threshold and update that, you can see that it's adding more of this black area. If I want to decrease some of my brightness thresholds, if I want to bring this down, it was at 0.45 at the beginning, so maybe I want to bring this down to like 20 and press update. You can see that it's kind of losing some different areas here. Let's try this. Let's also try let's try edge detection. I normally don't use edge detection. It never really quite works out like the way that I want it to. But what it does is it kind of detects the edges of this image here. So if I kind of increase this, maybe I want like an outline of these petals, you know, I can increase that and get more of that, or I can decrease this and get fewer details on that, or sorry, more details on that. Higher the number goes, will give you more fewer details. The lower will give me more details. Color quantization, because it's a black and white image, it's just like detecting different shades of gray here. And then let's try this auto trace. And then let's just kind of see what this looks like. I'm going to press apply here. And depending on what type of image you have and like the different threshold that you've chosen, sometimes this can sort of slow down your computer. So that's like much different than the actual photo looks here. But there's that. So the thing about this is if you zoom really far in, you can kind of see what this looks like. So this is kind of what I was talking about. Sometimes this works really well for what you're doing, and then sometimes it doesn't work super well. You know, if you were trying to create this image and use this image for like some sort of like design, like a billboard or something, and you wanted to blow this image way up here, and because you've got this low quality photo, you wanted to bring it and scale it way up here. Sometimes you can use this sort of thing, but for an image like this, you know, if you look at that, it just looks really kind of like garbled and sort of messed up here. Okay, let's just try like brightness cutoff. I'm going to delete this, and let's just try our original image here and sort of see what that does there. Okay. Okay, so you can kind of play around with that. We're going to try another image here, like this here. And so this one also is kind of a low quality image. So if you zoom in, you can see that it's a pretty low quality image. This is all pretty blurry. It doesn't look very good. And let's kind of see what this looks like. So I'm going to click on update and kind of see what this looks like. I'm going to increase my threshold. Okay, so I'm getting like a little bit more detail. So you can also try some of these different settings too. Again, these are going to kind of change based upon what these different ones do. So there's speckles, which will ignore small spots, so it'll get rid of some of these little bitty details here. There's smooth corners, which are going to kind of like smooth out my corners here. And then there's optimize, which will optimize paths by joining adjacent curve settings. So what that does is it will, instead of creating lots of different nodes and lots of different details and stuff like that, it'll try to simplify that down. Because remember, what this is doing is it's creating a vector image for this. So I'm going to just press apply here and kind of see what this looks like. Okay. So this looks okay. So I could also like change the color of this. So this is like an actual vector image here. This doesn't look super bad. You could also go in and kind of like edit this. So if I wanted to go in, you know, I could kind of delete some of these different nodes and stuff like that. If I wanted to, I could grab some of these nodes and edit them. You know, you can do all the same sort of things that you can inside Inkscape with this here. So I could use some of those live path effects that we talked about and apply different filters and stuff like that to it here. Okay. And then let's try this other color image here. So if I zoom in here, I've got this image here, and this is actually kind of like a graphic image, and it's broken down here. And let's try the multiple scans here. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to go to colors here, and then so I've got scans, and so scans is the amount of layers of color that I can create. I can change some of these here. Smooth, a Gaussian blur is kind of like adding it's kind of softening the edges of things. Stack is where it creates my files right on top of each other, and then remove background is I can remove background. So I could actually do that on this here. I've got kind of like a light gray background, so I'm going to click on this and kind of delete that background from my image here. I'm going to click on update, kind of see what this looks like here. That looks pretty good, so I'm going to go to apply. And again, sometimes you can see my little wheel spinning here, so sometimes this takes a little bit of time here. And you can see that it did get rid of the background. My image with the bounding box around this is much smaller than my original image here. I'm going to click and drag and pull this off and put this over to the side here. And then I'm just going to kind of zoom in and sort of kind of compare that to my original image here. So you can see that there's some stuff that I've kind of lost in this image here, and that's probably because I needed to do more layers of scans, but we're just going to keep it like that here. And right now these are all grouped here, so if I go up to object and then go to ungroup, I can ungroup all my layers here. So I've got like this dark green layer. If I click on this kind of medium green, I've got that. I've got this other green here, and so this has separated this image out into all those different layers here. Right on top here. So if you were doing, for example, like some sort of like screen print or other type of print here, you could separate this out into those separate layers here. Or if you wanted to go in and change, you know, this the color of this flower. So maybe instead of this pink, you know, maybe I wanted to do different like tints and shades of, maybe I wanted to turn this like, you know, a blue flower, and then grab this one and create this one as like, you know, a darker blue, and then add this one here and kind of adjust it and kind of change it and do something like that. That's something that you could also do, which can be kind of cool here. Okay. Again, the thing about this is sometimes it looks really great depending on what it is that you're trying to do, and sometimes like it has this very like specific look to it. You gotta kind of think about what's your end result here, how you want it to look, and then kind of your time ratio. So other images will work really well. Usually you want to try to find a good image that's nice and clean, not super blurry, and then that'll usually work a lot better than something that's really complex and is kind of fuzzy or pixelated here. Okay, so pretty cool. So for this, do the same things, try out some of those different designs here that I've done, and then kind of play around with some of different settings here, and put your designs over here off to the right, like what I've got here. Okay.